The Minneapolis mayoral election is tomorrow, and we are grateful to the five candidates who joined us here on the show to discuss LGBTQ issues. Again, on the radio, we were the only outlet to cover the LGBTQ side of the mayoral race. And as Minneapolis can set the tone and agenda for LGBTQ rights in Minnesota and nationally, Jim and I have come to the decision that we here at the Gaily Show would review the candidates to determine if voters should rank them on their ballot or not. So essentially to do endorsements. Minneapolis voters can rank up to 3 candidates. We are going to do something a little bit different with our endorsements. So we're going to break them down into 3 categories. Rank means that both Jim and I agree that voters should rank that particular candidate. A split vote means that one of us recommends ranking the candidate, but the other one does not. We leave it for you to decide. And then no recommendation means that neither of us recommend ranking a particular candidate. We will not recommend which order you should rank your candidates in. We leave it to you to decide who to rank first, second, or third. We will be discussing all the candidates that we invited to join us here on The Gaily Show, regardless of their attendance. So, who did Jim and I agree to rank? We can start there. We can start with Reverend Dr. Dwayne Davis. We recommend ranking Dr. Davis. Right off the bat, I think folks will say, oh, well, because Dr. Davis is the openly gay candidate, that means that we automatically rank him. That is incorrect. There are actually LGBTQ candidates in American politics that we disagree with very much, and we would not recommend ranking them, nor would we endorse them. For myself, and then Jim will get to your rationale here, I voted to recommend ranking Dr. Davis because of his expertise on the major issues facing Minneapolis and also his leadership approach. So I liked how he worked on spending bills in Congress as a senior legislative assistant for House Whip Steny Hoyer. His legislative work, as I understand it, focused on healthcare, education, Social Security, transportation, and housing. Of note, Representative Hoyer was a moderate Democrat, and I think that's important to note when considering all the various political factions in Minneapolis. I'll have more on that in a second. Dr. Davis also worked for the Democratic Leadership Council, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and was the director of federal and industry relations at Sallie Mae. I'm not thrilled about the latter, especially given the many federal investigations into that company. But after leaving Sallie Mae, because I wanted to see where this went, Dr. Davis served as a policy analyst for the Episcopal Church, served as the chaplain for the Minnesota State Senate, and taught at United Theological Seminary, and ultimately serving as the lead minister at Plymouth Congregational Church. The co-chair of the City Community Safety Working Group and the Minnesota Poor People's Campaign. Housing, big issue, I know, for Jim and I here. I appreciated how he has consistently said that the government has given up its traditional role to private developers, and Dr. Davis says that building more and more isn't a solution. He wants to use zoning and to incentivize public and nonprofit development of housing. On the economy, I like that the CTUL Action Fund endorsed Dr. Davis. If you don't know, CTUL is a worker-led organization where workers organize, educate, and empower each other to fight for a voice in their workplaces and in their communities. That is a direct quote from their website. I like that he wants small businesses to be part of the conversation the city has with using their incentive packages to bring big businesses into the downtown core. What incentives and pathways can the city create with those larger companies, bringing them here, that they will do business with smaller businesses here in Minneapolis? I said that in a very convoluted type of way. But on public safety, I want to say that Dr. Davis co-led the City Community Safety Working Group, and many of when you get into the recommendations of what the city has adopted, many of those come from that Community Safety Working Group. Which is, it was important for me to learn that and to see that. Under the consent decree to address the failings of the Minneapolis Police Department, there were independent monitors that were tasked with evaluating the city's progress on that. And Dr. Davis facilitated the community conversations with those monitors and was able to get some insight into why Minneapolis was succeeding in that and not in succeeding with those. And I think, having started his career working for Representative Steny Hoyer, a moderate, and having policies that align, some of which align with progressives in the DFL. I think that Dr. Davis could create dialogue between the mayor's office and the city council, which needs to happen. Every time I've heard him speak, and even in my interview with him, he is about convening people. On LGBTQ issues, he has worked hard to ban conversion therapy. That is an area of coverage that we're going to continue to have here, particularly as the Supreme Court is looking to strike down bans on conversion therapy. Uh, he's worked hard on anti-LGBTQ violence. He's worked on a variety of issues. You can imagine he's been on the board of Outfront Minnesota. And what I appreciated in my interview with him is how he said, Washington is no longer a reliable partner for us. Now is the time to have leadership who is going to work multi-jurisdictionally. So yes, Dr. Davis would be the first out LGBTQ mayor of Minneapolis, and that history is important, and we would celebrate that here on this show. But housing, public safety, and small businesses small business investment rather, are crucial to the LGBTQ community. So for those reasons, I recommend ranking Reverend Dr. Dwayne Davis for mayor. Jim, your recommendation.
I just want to say for the folks in Chicago, in case you're going, why do I care about this? I think we're at a time now when local and state leadership is crucial, critical, life-saving. And so, maybe you wouldn't pay as much attention to the mayoral race. Maybe you'd feel like, well, I don't know how much time I want to invest in that. This is now, I think, critical. And in your own city, your mayor is going to be just as important. So that's why we're putting so much emphasis. That's why I think we're putting this much emphasis on it. The one word I have written down for Dr. Davis is unity. I think this is a very difficult time to get unity on anything, but my goodness, and I'm not a religious person, but this gentleman has a tone and an outlook that is very inclusive of all people. Maybe it's the moderate thing you're talking about, John. He feels like he would sit and listen and consider carefully all points of view, and then you would want to hear what he has to say. That was how he struck me. Somebody that's going to bring this city together. My goodness, we'd better get together because the bad folks are coming from the outside. So anyway, yes, I think we should definitely endorse or support him for one of your votes.
We do recommend, very good, ranking Reverend Dr. Dwayne Davis. Our next candidate, and I'm seeing we're coming up on the end of our first break here, so I guess
we can't go that long.
We can start by saying we have Minnesota State Senator Omar Fateh. We do recommend ranking Senator Fateh. A primary reason for myself was the legislative record. If you've been paying attention to Senator Fateh's campaign, now funding free college tuition for tens of thousands of Minnesotans, securing a statewide living wage for Uber and Lyft drivers, investing $19 million for public safety in Minneapolis, saving the 2040 plan to make sure we are building more affordable housing and ensuring a cleaner environment for all of us via the 100% clean energy bill. I'm reading that directly from his website language because it's the most succinct. He talks about it a lot, rightly so. I think it's important that he supports a living wage of $20 an hour. Wages for workers are not rising, and we need all available action to get those wages up. We've talked previously on the show about how taxes and how the top earners have dismantled their tax burden across the country, particularly at the federal level. So I agree with Senator Fateh's plan to explore a wealth tax. I do wish that others would consider it, or at least looking into it. On the economy, again, I like that the CTUL also endorsed Senator Fateh. And also my previous union, of which I was a member, MAPE, the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, also endorsed Senator Fateh, and I take a lot of stock into my union because we were about 12,000 union members, 12 to 13,000, depending on the year, all working at key levels across Minnesota government, and we had the pulse on what was happening in local communities. And on housing, Senator Fateh rightly recognizes the negative effects of the profit motive on private companies have when it comes to building housing. And he has a lot of solutions around utilizing the city government to address that. I do have to fit in a break here. We're going to have more about why we are recommending to voters to rank Senator Omar Fateh for Minneapolis mayor when we come back. You are listening to The Gaily Show on AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and WCPTA 20, Chicago's progressive talk. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe and click like. And if you haven't signed up for the AM 950 weekly e-newsletter, you can go to am950radio.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, and sign up. All right, we are continuing our endorsement process for the Minneapolis Mayoral election that is happening tomorrow. Before the break, we told you how we are doing these endorsements. So Jim and I are doing them as either a rank, which means Jim and I both agree that a voter should rank that candidate. A split vote, meaning one of us agrees that a candidate should be ranked. We leave it to you to decide. And then there is a no recommendation if neither Jim and I agree that that candidate should be ranked. Before the break, we talked about how we both agreed that voters should rank Reverend Dr. Dwayne Davis in tomorrow's election. We had just gotten started by saying that we also agree that Minnesota State Senator Omar Fateh should be ranked as well. I gave my rationale for that. Jim, would you like to share your reasons?
I'm just going to say he's a change agent. That can sometimes be good and sometimes be mixed, but I believe he would be the choice for somebody that wants significant change. That's all I'm going to say.
I will also add to that I think that his relationships with the city council will be different than Mayor Fry's were, and that may lead to getting out of a logjam that we have, similar to what I said for Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis's approach, I think, also would lead to undoing the logjam with the city council and having all of those areas working together to advance the city. So that is also why we are recommending to rank Senator Omar Fateh in the election tomorrow. With the current incumbent, Mayor Fry, we have a split decision here. So we will leave it to you on whether you want to rank or not. I opted not to rank. I personally don't vote there, but I'm recommending not to rank Mayor Fry. I think there are a lot of good things in the mayor's record, including his executive order regarding keeping access to gender-affirming care in the city. He has been a very clear ally to the LGBTQ community. If reelected, he said he wants over 12,000 new housing units for a range of income levels. He wants to expand the 4D Affordable Housing Incentive Program. But his position seems to be focused on just building more low-cost housing, which I would disagree is a long-term solution. Unregulated profit motives persistently lead to bad housing decisions. I worry that we have too much of a deadlock between the mayor's office and the city council. And it often feels, when I listen to the debates, when I read the transcripts of interviews, that the rationale for Mayor Fry's campaign is somewhat to stop the city council, which in and of itself isn't a reason to have another 4-year term. I think folks may take me up on that, and please, you can. But speaking of the 4-year term, this is largely the issue that I have here, is that I don't believe in candidates perpetually running for offices. I disagree with Governor Tim Walz's decision to run for a 3rd term. I believe we are a democracy and that we need term limits. And so largely on that is where I do not recommend that voters rank Mayor Fry. Regardless of positions, I just think that we need term limits in this country. We have too many people who are staying forever in their offices. I applaud Senator Tina Smith for stepping down when she is choosing to step down. And on that reason, I have my recommendation not to rank Mayor Fry. But Jim, you do recommend ranking Mayor Fry.
I do. I think I would call Mayor Fry the business as usual candidate. And there's some things that are just fine about that. He's right that this is a difficult job. This isn't something you come in 6 weeks and fix all the problems. I don't think he's a bad mayor. I think he's got some issues that I'm not sure he knows how to solve. And I'm not sure that anyone could solve them, especially if the city council decides they don't like him. All of that sort of childish stuff, childish maybe on both sides. I don't know. It's like, we don't have time for that. So I wish that everybody was on the same page to do the right thing for the city. And I'm sorry we're dealing with all the personality nonsense, but I don't think Mayor Fry is a bad mayor. And so I do recommend that you consider if you want business as usual, that's a reasonable point of view to have, and that's why I would recommend putting him somewhere on your list of 3.
All right. We have, I think what we'll do here is we're coming up on the break here. We have 2 candidates, 3 actually, that we invited to be on the show, 2 of whom rather were able to join us, Brenda Short and Alejandro Richardson. In both of their cases, we have no recommendation to rank both of them. We really appreciated their time. I guess I'll speak for myself. I really appreciated the time that I had, the short time I had with them to interview them and hear their thoughts on LGBTQ issues. I just felt that there isn't enough there in their candidacies in terms of experience to justify our ranking in the mayoral race tomorrow. But I think that both of them do have very interesting perspectives on Minneapolis politics. And so it'll be very interesting to see where they go from here, if they choose for smaller local elections or ultimately run for the city council. I think it's very interesting to see where that may lead for them. Also, there is the socialist candidate, Kevin Dwyer, who we invited, who did not accept our invitation to
Ironically.
be here. That is not being here or not being here was not,
No.
part of the reason why we would or wouldn't endorse somebody.
No.
But again, I think that our recommendation is not to endorse, largely because for myself, when I would listen to his campaign talking points, there just wasn't a lot there besides the sort of the standard capitalism bad, which I think there's a lot of things to talk about there and to unpack, but there didn't seem to be a lot to the campaign beyond that sort of standard line there. We're going to take a break. We have one more candidate that we are going to share with you, our ranking decision. You are listening to The Gaily Show on AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk. Today, for the first part of the show, we are offering our recommendations to Minneapolis voters, as we're based in the Twin Cities, on the Minneapolis mayoral candidates that we invited to be here on the show, and whether or not we think that voters should rank them or not. As a recap, we are doing this in 3 different types of categorizations. A recommendation to rank means both Jim and I agree that candidate should be ranked. We did that with both Reverend Dr. Dwayne Davis and Minnesota State Senator Omar Fateh. We recommend to rank. There are split decisions, meaning one of us agrees to rank and the other one does not. We leave it to you to make that decision. We had that with incumbent mayor Jacob Fry, where Jim agreed to recommend to rank, and I did not, on the basis of term limits. I don't believe in people perpetually running for office, and I think political term limits are important. Before the break, we were talking about 3 candidates, 2 of whom did come to the show, Brenda Short and Alejandro Richardson. The third, Kevin Dwyer, who did not join us. Jim and I both agreed not to have a recommendation to rank these candidates. But Jim, what were your thoughts on them?
I just want to say that I think all 3 of the folks that came in on the show, and I watched all of your interviews, I wasn't in the room, were credible, sincere, good-hearted, decent people, the kind of person that you'd be proud to have them working on your behalf in government. I felt that way about all of them. So I tried to write down a positive about each person. And about Alejandro, I said, he's working class. He's a labor union person. I support that 100%. He said, see you in 4 years. And I thought, yeah, okay. Yeah. Make that an appointment. Brenda, I thought had this tremendous empathy because of her life. And I thought she was great. It was hard to pick 3 people out of this group, but I wanted everyone to know that I tried to, as such a negative person, I tried to have a positive to say about each candidate. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Jim, for that. So our final candidate that we are making a recommendation on is Jazz Hampton, and we have a split decision here. I am recommending to rank, and Jim is recommending not to rank. I think that something that I really appreciate about Jazz is his communication style, which I think is actually really important these days. I think people give too much credence to say, oh, well, what's the importance of communication? A lot of our politics right now is being debated within the communication sphere, particularly the media. So having folks who understand communication and media and have that savvy and can tell interesting stories that relate policy down to that, I think is really important. I think you see that as well with, not to return to an earlier thing, but with Dr. Dwayne Davis being a minister, understands the power of storytelling and using that to communicate with folks. So that is something that I was really, I really appreciated from Jazz. Something I will say is that sometimes, though, in those interviews, because he's doing that connection, which is so great, sometimes you kind of get lost in his very specific policy decisions that he would make if he was mayor. And so I do recommend going to his website where you can get very clear, like these are the policies that Mr. Hampton rather would enact if he were elected mayor. I mean, a few of them in here, ending unconstitutional searches that erode public trust and disproportionately harm marginalized communities. I think, that was something there, establishing a living wage certification program with tax incentives rather for businesses, launching a buy local initiative with through the city government, forming a small business and labor advisory council, like with Senator Fate and with Reverend Dr. Dwayne Davis. I really appreciated that the CTUL Action Fund endorsed Jazz as well. I see that as a marker of his commitment to worker rights and his work on the economy. And so that is my rationale for ranking, for why I think voters should rank Mr. Jazz Hampton. Also, you can go and watch the interview that we had with him. I mean, very clearly an ally of the community, and would be someone I think that would be who we could work with in the mayor's office as a community specific to LGBTQ issues.
Mr. Hampton was great. I thought I wrote down neighborhood town meeting. This is the kind of person I would want to sit in a meeting of 20 people talking about what are we going to do in our neighborhood. He's empathetic, but he has leadership qualities. I thought he was great. I think the problem is, in a city this size, you got to be a little bit more, I don't know what it is. I hate to say it. It's slick and it's kind of grosses me out, but I think it requires a level of slickness to be able to deal with some of the unsavory people that you have to deal with. So I believe he's almost too good at the moment. Maybe he'll be a little more rotten, in a few years he'll develop a few calluses, but he just seems like such a genuine, nice guy. You think, ugh, I would hate to put him in that lion's den, with the city council and all that. So I feel like he's a great potential candidate, and that maybe he'll have some, rough elbows after another year or two. But I just think he's a great person. I liked him very much as a person.
That is why we have a split vote here. Because I think that his communication style could help to overcome that. I do believe that Mr. Hampton could have a way of communicating with the city council and other big players around undoing that logjam between all of them right now. Everything kind of just feels like it's at a standstill.
Yep.
And so, but we can disagree on these issues. We leave it to Minneapolis voters to make your decision tomorrow.
Yep.
Polls will open. You can find your polling location if you go to minneapolismn.gov. You can find your polling location, what time the polls are open for you. Remember, look at when that poll closes. As long as you are in line, you can vote tomorrow evening. And there are a variety of new accessibility machines and policies in place to make sure that all of the polling locations in Minneapolis are fully accessible for you to participate in as well. So you can go to minneapolismn.gov to find your polling location. And please, our endorsement always vote. Please vote. Please get out and vote. It's very important. Take folks with you now more than ever when we see this particular presidential administration who is very openly openly, welcoming neo-Nazis and,
Right,
pardoning people who are trying to overthrow the constitutional process.
right.
We need folks who are participating in a democracy. And
Yep,
so if you're upset with what Trump is doing, you need to vote tomorrow
yep,
in local elections. That
yep.
is how we exercise our power. We are always going to say that here. And on our YouTube channel, we have a whole list of all of our episodes around democracy and preserving and protecting our democracy there. Lots of amazing interviews from people who are working on voting rights, who are voting or working on voting rights, but also who are helping people um, run for office,
Hmm.
and a lot of different, how do we combat fascism, all of that. You can find that on our YouTube channel.
Well, and this person, when elected, whoever they are, is going to be the spokesperson that's going to, at some point, probably have to stand up against the big gorilla. And I've thought about that too. Who's going to be the person that's going to represent us in that battle to come? So it's really important you all vote. It would be critical to have an outstanding turnout. It'll give whoever that person is all the firepower, hopefully, that they need.